What's great? It's your girl 513J, and you're here with Great Minds. Now, in today's episode, we're going all the way back to 1979, where it all started. I mean, hip hop was not even a thing before this date, right? Well, that's what people say. But if you ask Sylvia Robinson and Joey Robinson, they would say differently. Now, it was 1979 where Sylvia Robinson would be sliding around a place called Crispy Crust Pizza. And she would be looking for a new sound after her hit single Pillow Talk 1973 got over 2 million sales. She wanted something different. In her own words, she wanted a new sound, right? So she would be driving around the place, see this Crispy Crust Pizza, and have people coming to audition to be a part of something that she had seen out on the block, seen out at park and parties. MCs. I don't know what else to call it. Sylvia saw this new sound and wanted to bring it into the studio and commercialize it. And that is exactly what she did. Crispy Crust Pizza, we would find Big Bank Hank Jackson, who at the time would be managing Grandmaster Caz. But at the time, Big Bank Hank must have wanted to be an artist, because when Sylvia came sliding around there, Hank auditioned with Grandmaster Caz's lyrics. So, before we get too much dirt, grime, I want to talk a little bit about the history of it all first. And we're going to get into the scandal that is Sugarhill Records, right? So, after Big Bank Hank goes in auditions, he's in the limo or the car with Sylvia, right? Just sliding around, he's thinking he's the man. Sylvia ends up pointing out Master G, or Guy O'Brien, and his manager at the time, I believe. And they're walking down the street, and Master G actually ends up auditioning with Sylvia. And so later that day, they would all end up at Sylvia and Joey's mansion and actually have the final audition there, where they would eventually come together, right? Wonder Mike, Big Bank Hank, and Guy Master G O'Brien. Now, it's crazy that in that entire time, it only took, I want to say 3 days or maybe even 5 days for them to record the single after meeting each other, right? Now, these are 3 people that don't know each other from a can of paint, but they all came together due to Sylvia's gathering, right? So you got to give her credit when it's due. She saw talent, she noticed talent, and she snatched it on up, right? So she grabs these 3 guys, they audition, they record none other than Rapper's Delight, and she actually makes the first hip-hop label called Sugarhill Records, with the first members of her label being Sugarhill Gang. Now, she would go on to sign other acts later, and these acts would eventually claim that she never gave royalty statements, only gifts. And this was not something out of the ordinary for them, because they had done so with all of their artists. Or I don't want to say all, I don't want to implicate, but from the research that I've done, most of their artists had issues with fraudulence. So not only would they not give them royalty statements, but they would later on add their names and their children's names to the records for co-writing credits. Now, we know that this is very important, because in masters, anybody whose name is on the record, they're going to get a credit for it. They're going to get financial gain from it, revenue from it. So, obviously, knowing the game at the time, Joey Sr. and Sylvia Robinson would eventually put Joey Jr. and Leland Robinson on pretty much every one of their artists' records, or everyone here and there, so that they would eventually have writing credits for songs that they never had to pen on, right? And this would obviously be a huge deal in the rap community or the hip-hop community, because as MCs, if you take someone's lyrics, you're not an MC. And if you claim that you wrote someone else's lyrics, it gets really messy. You almost lose your image at that point. So, and speaking on that, Hank actually would eventually become kind of the laughingstock of hip-hop, if you say, like, I don't want to disrespect, because at the end of the day, he was part of Sugarhill gang. But as a writer myself, I cannot respect the stealing of Grandmaster Caz's lyrics. So that's just what it was. So they would record that exact record August 15th, 1979, not too long after they'd actually met each other, right? 3 days after they met each other, to be precise. And this was a 15-minute long song, and it played everywhere. When it aired, that was the only thing that could be heard in the street or at the club, or, I mean, honestly, anywhere that you went, it was Rapper's Delight. And so they would go on to have this crazy streak with Rapper's Delight, Apache, Eighth Wonder. And this would give Sugarhill Records platinum albums or platinum records for the first commercialization of hip-hop or rap lyrics, right? So between 1979 and 2009, each member that participated on Rapper's Delight received no more than $250,000 in between that entire time. Now, this is for a platinum record when hip-hop is first coming out. They're getting rock and roll recognition, right? And so $250,000 per artist is less than minimum wage. Something's not adding up. It would later be found that the Robinsons would obviously be collecting the funds for themselves. They would be spending on their children, buying new cars, new clothes, watches, jewelry, chains, valuing per piece over $50,000 for one item for a child. And so eventually, with all the toxicity, we would have them eventually want to leave Sugarhill gang and Sugarhill Records. Master G would leave in 1985 and have a little issue with drugs, which I don't really want to bring up because everybody has their own fight. But it's very important to note the stress that this record label and this company brought upon the artist. So, but not only did he do that, he did door-to-door magazine sales. And so the hustle really just never stops. They saw what it was like to be famous, and then it'd be gone in an instant. Now, not only did Master G leave, but Mike would leave the following year and actually start an interior-exterior paint service. And so to survive, they did what they had to do. They got a job, or they started businesses, and they just continued on with their life. Now, Sugarhill gang was not the first group that either of these members were on, but obviously it was a big part of their success. It was a big part of why they are who they are. Although they would have Hank rejoin the team, Master G would not come back, and they did have Wonder Mike participate for a little while, and even in that time he had to clean houses on the side just to be able to survive. Now, Leland Jr., Joey Jr. would eventually go on to consider himself Master G and perform as Master G. Joey Jr. was performing as Master G until around 2005, right? Which actually would end up becoming the rebirth of the original Sugarhill gang, or the initial members of Sugarhill gang, where Wonder Mike and Master G would actually come back together with Hen Dog and T Dynasty to create the actual Sugarhill gang, right? Now, eventually, Morris Levy, Roulette Records owner that actually invested into Sugarhill Records, he would pass away in May of 1990, and following his death would be Joey Sr., which would eventually lead Sylvia to retire and give the company to her children, Leland and Joey Jr. Now, of course, during this time, they were left to be questioned for finances, and it wasn't looking so great for them. So, October 2002, Sugarhill Studios would actually go up into flames, leaving nothing. Masters records were gone, and also financial records. Shocking. In that exact same year, Joey Jr. would go on to trademark Sugarhill Gang, the group name, but he did not stop there. He tried to register Master G and Wonder Mike, singular identities, after 23 years of fame. If that's not fraudulence, I don't know what is. Now, in 2005, as I said before, the real Sugarhill Gang would come back together and perform for the very first time in 2006 in Albuquerque. Now, during these times, there was 2 Sugarhill Gangs performing, 2 Wonder Mikes, and 2 Master Gs. This would cause confusion, and not only confusion amongst promoters and other people that were coming to see the show, but confusion for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, they would eventually hire the fake group to come and perform for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to celebrate Sugarhill Records, right? Or to celebrate Sugarhill Gang, which is actually insane because, again, Leland Jr. was considering himself Master G at the time. So, to make it up to them, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would eventually try to contact the actual Sugarhill Gang and have them come and perform for the 30th anniversary of Rapper's Delight. But this would eventually be canceled because of calls from Joey Jr., which wasn't the first time that he would call. He called and badgered promoters, constantly gave them a hard time to perform in certain places, and they would even leave a bad taste in people's mouth for Sugarhill Gang, which would later cause the actual Sugarhill Gang to have a couple of issues and have to work out some problems that they never caused for themselves. So in 2009, the actual Sugarhill Gang would eventually make another hit single, charting 21 on the Billboard charts, called La La Song. And this would be the actual rebirth of the Sugarhill Gang and their official recognition for this time period. So on the next episode, we will be getting into the politicized style of hip-hop, which obviously didn't start just at this time, but Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five would give us some serious politicized style, along with a lot of other artists. So we're going to get into that. But until next time, a freestyle that I actually wrote in the name of the original, the real Sugarhill Gang, right? It's so delightful to be here, rapping who started the game. Just know 513 be so honored to be calling the name. Wrote this here, Grandmaster Kaz, I could never be hanged. I don't have a Wonder Mike and Master G, but I'm great. Shout out Sugarhill. Until next time, y'all.